There's an importance to thinking out of the box in all things to do with music, production, mixing, mastering, but not only that, anything to do with your setup. In other words, any time you set up your stuff, have you really thought about all the things you could do to change a problem you might be experiencing? Because it's very few of us, I think, that are totally 100% happy with like everything we're hearing. And a lot of that could come down to, something simple that costs you no money at all, like $0. I can't tell you how many people get the speaker height wrong when they set up their speakers. If they're a little too high or a little too low, it's a problem. But do you know how many people have never done this, where they measure from the ground to where their ear sits when their chair is in whatever height it's going to be at, and then measure to the point on the speaker that the company tells you is where you should be? So for the ATC 50s, for example, they tell you that your ear should be 5 degrees below the middle of the mid-dome, which would be roughly 6 inches or a little more than that at 6 feet. So somewhere like 6 to 7 inches at 6 feet gets you a 5-degree slope. So you measure from the ground to your ear, you measure from the ground to that middle of the mid-dome on those three-way speakers, because they're three-ways that's the case. It would be a different measurement for other speakers that might have other physical characteristics that are different about how they are built. So you have to look at the website for that specific manufacturer. See what they tell you about where you should be, they always write something. You got to look that stuff up. Most people don't read the manuals. You'd be surprised. Also, don't rule out the fact that most people's floor, like most of the time, it's not perfectly in sync. So you kind of need to know what the measurement is from the floor to the top of that speaker stand, and then measure the other one. And if you have one that's maybe even you have fixed height stands, one could be lower than the other. So you may have to figure out a way to compensate for that a little bit. Move the stand a little, see if it's just one spot that's lower. I mean, you'd be surprised, but where I am, I noticed that I had to make one stand a little bit taller just to get it flat with the other one. To make it where I was like this, because even though I measured from the ground up, one was lower than the other. So I had to compensate. So that's how it is. It's like no matter where you are, things like this happen. You always have to kind of figure that out. We're so focused on all these super detail-oriented things when we mix. But this, one of the most important things, I don't think a lot of people spend much time messing with, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One, your stands may be the height they are, and that's just what it was when you bought them, and they're fixed. You cannot adjust them. So as a result, you just deal with it, or you try to, whatever. But let me give you some suggestions, because outside the box thinking is what I'm talking about today. And I went through something just like this, and that's why it kind of occurs to me. So you could easily lower your chair to make it where your ear is now in a different position to your speakers, or raise it if you need to, either way. Other things you could do is on your fixed height stands, you could put, they're not that expensive. They're like these isoacoustic kind of things that add a little bit of, height to it, and they're adjustable. Some of those, like I had that years ago when I used basically speakers on a flat desk, and I needed to get them significantly higher. I started with a bunch of books, tried to get the books to be the same height on both sides, and then put the speakers on those. That was my first set of speaker stands. After the books, I went to these isoacoustic things that had basically two heights. The short bars, which only raised at like 2 inches or 3 inches, and then another option, which was like a 6-inch bar, which raised it probably like 7 inches or something like that. So it got it up a bit higher. And they make different sizes of those. So you could wind up putting those like on the stands themselves and get a little more height if you want. And an adjustable chair, which a lot of people have today, an adjustable chair, you can easily find that place. Now, how do you do it? I would use a laser pointer point it straight from where your ear is directly to the speaker, and have someone, it helps if you have someone with you when you do this, because you really need to know it's a straight line and you're not going up in the air, and then you could literally judge how far from where you're supposed to be you are. Where does it mark the speaker? And then measure that in inches. So it really helps to have someone with you to help you in this sense. But, once you've done that, you'd be surprised at how different your listening experience could be. I've had experiences where just by moving the speaker an inch, you get a whole different picture, an entirely different picture. And it sounds like, what? Just that? Yes, it doesn't take a ton. And that's actually what plays and wreaks havoc on my brain too, because I'm like, oh man, there's an infinite amount of possibilities of inches. I could move these things all over the place to create different results of what I'm hearing. If that's not enough to make you want to just chew, I don't know what is, because I don't get it, so the point is this: you have to start somewhere. You got to put laser pointer deals, one boom to the speaker, measure it. Then other things we could do here, right, is talk about a little bit of a flaw in the industry, a little bit, but there's several companies that make speaker stands, but there's really like one major one. Like once you start getting up to heavier duty speakers, a lot of those stands, the weight limits sort of max out at a certain point. So, it's like for me, on what I'm going to try to do here, the ADJ2 stands I got, which I like a lot, and they're sound anchors, and they're not cheap. They are not going to work with my new speakers, of course. It's just how stuff works. They're not going to work. So as a result, these have to go back. Now, the ones that will work, the lead time is like 6 weeks. What? So in other words, like what? How is it that we have to wait that long? Like I get it, manufacturing. I get it. It's whatever, but there's just no other options. This is sometimes what happens when there's no other options, and a particular field is dominated by like one company. You either have to wait 6 weeks or you're just out of luck, man. So in my case, I'm forced to think out of the box. I keep thinking out of the box and out of the box, right? Because other things you could do, by the way, just to kind of jump back to that, literally try moving your speaker stands as close to the wall as you can get them. I've had a lot of good luck by doing that, more so even than with freestanding. But if you have enough space in your room, go freestanding also and see what works. It's just that a lot of speakers, especially the less expensive ones, or, ones that just don't have a lot of power, they have to work significantly harder when they're freestanding to be able to kind of give you more information. So you wind up turning them up and then they wind up distorting, and that kind of clouds your view. So by putting them near a wall, you sort of use the wall as enhancement to the speaker, so to speak. Like, for example, you ever take your phone and put it in a big bowl or a cup, and now all of a sudden that whole area acts like a speaker because you're putting it in something. It's just like putting a speaker near a wall. It's very similar, because when the low frequencies come out of your speakers, they don't just go straight. They go like this. They're omnidirectional. So because of that, they're going to feed all over the place. And by having it near a wall, that's going to basically control where that reflection is, because it's going to happen anyway. But the closer you get to the wall, the more that will be closer in time to the sound you're hearing, which will kind of hurt it less. The problem you experience might be easier to correct that way. I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to get too technical. All right. The point is, you got to try stuff and see what you like. I'm giving you another option. Just throw it close to the wall could be helpful. With some speakers, it's better to be freestanding. Now, what I was saying, I'm trying to figure out how to put these heavy speakers, which are 108 pounds, and wide. I mean, if you were to put them vertically, that would put my ear too low on where that mid dome would be, considering I've got racks on my desk. If the desk was flat, I could probably get away with putting them vertical, and where my ear is would be in line with where it's supposed to be, approximately 6 inches below. Yeah, my ear 6 inches below where the mid dome is. So the speaker's 6 inches above, at the mid dome, the center of the mid dome, to my ear when they're 6 feet away. That's approximately this measurement of 5 degrees. It's how it works out. So when I think about all this stuff, I'm like, okay, vertical is not an option for me with this desk with the racks. And I don't want to plan to like get rid of the desk. Like, I actually like the desk. It's just one day I think I may see if I could get rid of it and put something in here like a standing table or something and see if I could deal with that. That's just, my thought process at the moment. It'll be some janky, like, DeWalt freaking work bench that goes high enough. And I just, something cheap to see if I could figure out if this works, if I like to stand before I go hardcore with it. We talked about that already in another video. What I wanted to mention in this one is me having to come up with a way that I don't have to wait 6 weeks to put my speakers on stands was like so critical for me, because I don't know if you know this, but I'm just bugging out over here because I know what I need. I want it. Like, I can pay for it. It's ready to be here. And where are the stands? 6 weeks. Woo. So I can't deal with that. So I'm over here like, what else can I do? What else can I do? That's the think out the box style that you need. Okay. And my thought was this. There are these stands that I've heard of that are called Space Lab Lift. People have talked about this. They are basically, what's cool about them, in my opinion, is you can get a set of them for about the same price as the sound anchor stands, but they're motorized. See, when I priced the motorized sound anchor stands, they told me $6,000 plus. It was $6,050 or something, plus shipping, plus tax, plus whatever. So I was just like, what? No, I appreciate it, but no. And those lift things are $800 a stand. And I think you also have to buy the control. It's like $200. And they're also about 5 days. It says 5 to 7 days arrival time, I think is what it says from when you order it. So I was like, woohoo, what's good here? How can I make this work? And then I look at all the dimensions and the stuff and the weight. What's the deal? It's all, the heaviest they can lift is 41 kilograms or something. So, 80 some odd pounds. It's the heaviest. And these things are 108 pounds. So can't do it. They won't work. They'll max out the capacity of the lift. And then the size of the platform was also too small for me. For those speakers, it wouldn't work. It was like, I don't remember exactly, but something in the neighborhood of like 15 by 12 or something like that. I mean, I'm sort of just going by memory. So those were ruled out as an option. But it took me until today because my brain keeps trying to figure out how to make the Rubik's Cube line up because I don't want to wait 6 weeks. It took till today till I realized, what about this as an option? I go to the website of Space Lift. I'm looking through it and I'm like, there's technology built into here where you synchronize the stands so they move together. First of all, pretty gangsta. Second of all, why can't I use 2 on one speaker? Now, yes, it's going to make everything twice as expensive, but they were already half the price for a set. I mean, as it would have been for one of the motorized other ones. So in other words, for something in the neighborhood of like $3,000, which is a lot. I'm not saying it's not. I might be able to get adjustable stands and have them here in 5 days, which for somebody like me is a lot to not have to wait 6 weeks, because that 6 weeks could turn into 8 weeks, could turn into 7 weeks. It's probably not going to turn into 4 weeks, and that's not just the opposite of optimism talking, not necessarily from them, but just that happens. I've been sitting here, anybody who's ever done anything where you have to wait for something to get to you, and it's always a forever thing. It's not usually on the dot. There you go, 6 weeks. It's approximate. So they're allowed some leeway, and you got to deal with that. And I'm over here like, man, got to wait 7 or 8 weeks to do stuff, and then I'm going to be using my old school, monitoring all that time. And it's like, I got stuff I have to do. Like, what are we doing here? Can't do that. So that's why my brain keeps like trying to figure it out, trying to figure it out. So that's why I came up with 2 stands per speaker to allow it to lift. Now that would allow for the weight I need, because it would be, if they could move together, then who's to say they won't, they probably won't unbalance the speaker as it's lifting. And maybe they could wire it to one switch. So I just hit one and all 4 work. I know they have a way to do LCR, so they could do 3 speakers, but can they do 4? Maybe. If they can't, maybe there'll be just 2 control boxes I'll have to hit. But either way, I thought this was very interesting. And I also feel like it might be the best solution to get working quickly. Now, if you're in the market for speaker stands of some kind, you may want to look at Space Lab. I personally, it's like, I don't like to recommend stuff I've never tried, but when I do try it, I'll talk about how great it is or not. But at the moment, it just seems like a really good option because there's not a whole lot of other ones. There was another company that was doing stuff like sound anchors, but they're sort of not being distributed by the main distributors anymore. And I don't know exactly what happened, but they're not there. So I can kind of fathom a guess as to what happened, but I don't know for sure. But either way, there's definitely like a gap in this industry when it comes to like the higher end stuff in terms of speaker stands. There's not enough companies doing it. So you can't just, I'll just go to this company because their lead time is only a week or less. There's just no options. You have to either wait 6 weeks to whatever till it comes, or, or nothing, or you just thumb in the air. I don't know. What do you do? So I'm in a position right now where that's my best thought at the moment. We'll see what they say. I emailed the guy. We'll let him, he'll tell me what the deal is. Hopefully he's got great news, because that's like, I'd love to get these things up immediately and start working. So I'll let you know what happens with that. But that's just, I want to just talk about that importance of outside the box. It's like every time I'm mixing a song and there's a problem, you literally need to come up with at least 3 or 4 ways to fix it. One way may work, but a lot of times, the more you do stuff, the more you realize your first thought of how to fix it. If it doesn't, where do I go next? It's almost like chess. Some people do that thing where they can see 3, 4 moves ahead. It's a helpful tool to have in life. You don't always need the 3rd and 4th move, but if you don't have them, you wind up spending a lot of time wasted, in my opinion. So try to think a couple moves ahead if you can. And again, that's coming from somebody who overthinks a lot. So I don't know, maybe it's not a good thing either. I'm not sure. All I could tell you is I think when I figure this thing out, I'll be in a way better place, because I got to stop thinking about it. This is just running my life with like, man, nothing is working easy or coming. Like I told, from that first moment where the netting was in the ATC 45 I was like, oh no, this is going to be one of those times. This is going to be hard. This is going to be back and forth. There's going to be stuff. Oh man. And then once it came down to they won't fit on the stands, I was like, I saw that coming. So, luckily the big distributors out there in the US are really good. They're really good. They're good at handling customer service. They're good at making sure that, they do right by me. They're solid. So I feel like that's important. Build relationships with the distributors that, where they know that you're somebody who's trying to do this for real. And then it just becomes 2 engineers on opposite sides of the country trying to help each other. And I like that. That's cool. That's cool to me. Because a lot of the guys that do this, that work in these companies and stuff, they're also engineers, and that's how they know the products, and they're using them. They're familiar with it. Most of the people who get hired are like that. So you should look at it like they're you. They're basically you, and that's cool, in my opinion. Never underestimate the power of collaboration, whether it's in mixing, mastering, or just help figuring out what to do. It's helpful. But in this specific case, nobody came up with this idea but me. And it could be because it's the worst idea of all time, and they're going to tell me, nope, can't happen. The thing would tumble down like a ba. Maybe. Or they'll tell me, yes, that could work. That's great. And then I'll be like, score. We figured it out. Because it's definitely more money. It's approximately, from the stands I was going to have to get to fit those ATC 50s, which would be Admid 2s, which priced out, I was getting them with wheels to be able to move it. Order them with the casters, otherwise you're really kind of stuck where they are. Moving these ADJ2s around was not fun. I can't even imagine moving heavier stands around. That would be crazy. The Admid 2s came in around $2,300 or so. So, like, that's after everything, and I was like, oh wow, okay, it's a lot. And to get these might be, less than $1,000 more, or maybe $1,000 more. But, in the scheme of things, $1,000 is a lot. It's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not. But, you save money every other way you can, and then it might be really worth it to you to be able to hit a button and get these things at the perfect height, because that's the difference. Where I started in this conversation is all about the perfect height. You don't know how many mixing engineers will tell you 1 inch up, there you go, all your bass. 1 inch down, you lost it all. Or, vice versa, like, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit further back from the wall, a little closer, move the desk a little bit, turn to face the other way in the room. I mean, so many things like this. But when it comes to the height, critical to get the height right. So there's no better way to get the height right than to hit a button, because just from my experience, when you take the wrench and you twist it, it's doable to get the Allen wrench in there, move the platform, retighten it, but it's not fun, and it's hard, and you never get it exactly where you want. You're always like, perfect, I moved it 1 inch, and then you go to tighten it, and then it slides down a little, and it twists a little, and now you got to level it again. It's like the least fun thing ever in the world is to put a level on that platform and make sure it's level when you lock the wrench. It doesn't just lock. As you lock it, it moves. And as you tighten it, it tightens this way a little. It's like, oh, great, perfect. Now I loosen it to get it this way, and then you tighten it. Oh, perfect. So you got to compensate. No, I didn't compensate enough. Compensated too much. What a pain. I don't think there was anything ever more of a pain. And to do that, to get where you could hear the best, what a pain that would be. You'd be getting up, going over there. And this is the other thing. You can't do it with the speaker on the platform. You can't do it. It would be way too heavy, and you wouldn't be able to adjust with that weight on it. So here's another way to think outside the box. If you don't want to have people constantly around you to help you put that thing on and off the speaker platform, something that might be too heavy for you, or maybe you hurt your back, or who knows what, a lift, like one of these lift tables from, a hardware company like Home Depot or Grainger, or one of these places that would allow you to put the heavy thing on it, raise it up, and then just slide it from one platform to the other. That would eliminate the need for two people. But if you do that, you're going to have to take it and put it on that other platform thing, adjust it, but then put it back every single time you want to move it 1 inch. Who's going to do that? Me. I might have to. I don't know, man. I don't want to. That's why I'm trying to come up with another way. And then I find Lyft, the Space Lab company, and I was like, all right, what do we got here? So let's see what happens. All right. My fingers are crossed. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Let me know. Questions, comments. If you have other options too. Somebody mentioned the Northward stands, and you go to price them up, it's like $3,000 per unit. So it's like, what? We need more speaker stand companies making affordable speaker stands that are solid and made of steel, and bring the price of steel down. And how do we get good? We need better steel. Somebody's got to do something. So I hope people are thinking outside the box right now, partnering up maybe somebody with somebody, some steel manufacturer, hit me up. we got anybody. We need to make more stands available for people. Today was day 4 in the gym, which for me is the second round of chest, shoulders, tries. I work out old school Arnie style because that's just how I learned how to do it. Chest, shoulders, tries one day, and that was today. Back buys the next day. And you could put a rest day in between. That's all good, but back buys is next. Back and biceps. Then leg day. Then you do it all again, and you keep doing it. So this is the second round, as it's the 4th day of chest, shoulders, tries. Great workout, solid. I'll have more updates for you soon. Let's do it, man. Here we go. You guys, you know the deal. You got this. I'll talk to you guys soon. Leave a comment. I appreciate it. You guys got this. Take it easy.